This is Khalil Ekulona, and you're listening to the Me That Remains podcast with Amy Grant.
You could hardly hear the questions for the shouting in the room. There are no easy answers, and it's hard to break through. All the things they each believe in have drawn these battle lines. But could any of this fighting be worth these children's lives? No, no, it isn't so. No, no. How do we get there from here? How do we take the next step? How do we get there from here? Instead of saying we're not ready yet, how do we learn to trust each other instead of living life in fear? How do we get there from here?
You're so inquisitive with this record and the editorial, and like get to how we get there from here. It's about conflict, resolution, sense of distrust we have for another, for our neighbors, family, or friends in some circumstances. You know, you and Ruby Amanfu worked this song out together. And again, I'm going to quote some lyrics here. When the ink dries on our story, what will history reveal? Will we have been a part of the problem or a part of how we heal? That's pretty deep to me, because I think a lot of people would want to categorize themselves as the healer. Some people would categorize themselves as a part of the problem. I think very few of us would categorize ourselves as both.
We're all both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those were her lyrics for the second verse. And it's funny because she and I texted back and forth a few times. So I gave her the first verse and chorus with a music idea like 15 months ago. And then, you know, you can kind of throw it out there, launch out an idea, and somebody either will eventually respond or not. And then 2 weeks before our last session, she said, "Hey, I think I finally hooked that. I got an idea." She said, you know, and it was about the music. I said, "I love that." And anyway, and so for the second verse, you know, she wanted that second verse to be, but I said, I feel like it's got to be less about driving home the angst and identifying the importance of working together. I could find our text, but she was like, I'm not right. I'm not there. And I was like, okay. And she said, I'll come up with something. And I was busy with other things. And she texted me and she said, well, I went to an event with my family out of town. I flew back with my sister. I guess it's her older sister. And she said the whole flight back, she was saying the exact same thing you were saying. It has to be. We have to come at it looking together. And I said, we're going to record the song. It doesn't matter if the second verse is written. And she walked in and said, I've got it. Yeah. But I would say, I think it's the gift of years that make me look at any problem and go, oh, if there's a problem, I am a participant in the problem and a part of the solution.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is. You know, that whole phrase, it takes two to tango, every situation that's happened, it's a product of all of us.
It's a product. My grandmother had a saying, do you want to be right or do you want to fix the problem? And that comes to me all the time. I've said it a lot in the past 5 years, quite a bit to myself and others. And that's it. We often again, want to place ourselves on one side or the other. Most of the time, the altruistic side, the side that doesn't have to accept blame, that doesn't have to look in the mirror and be absolutely honest with ourselves about who we were, what we've said, what we thought, what our intentions were. You know, our intentions can be one thing, and then our actions are an entirely different thing.
Right.
And it's
right.
coming to grips with that, coming to grips with the contradictions that we live with, the contradictions that we say, even the ones that we think in terms of ourselves. And that's what I get from the song. It's like, okay, how are we going to get there from here? I've got friends who work in social justice space, and for the past couple of years, we would have conversations, really grandiose, wonderful, philosophical conversations about what's going on. And they're like, what would our society look like if we were able to get rid of the isms, racism, sexism, and things? What would it look like if we were able to do that? And I said, we've been spending a lot of brain power. A lot of brilliant folks have been spending years and years and years thinking about this. Why don't we just start living that way? We keep asking the question, what would it look like? Mm-hmm. We'll live like it's there. And that's kind of what I get from the song. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, yeah, how do we get there from here? How do we get there from here? You start acting like you're there now, here. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's what comes to me.
Yes. In the last few years, I rediscovered a great book by an author named Edith Eva Eger. And she was a concentration camp survivor from World War II. And then came to the United States and is a therapist now. And she's in her 90s. She was alive today or yesterday. So,
okay.
But I don't know if she said this specifically, but what I gleaned from her book, The Choice, was anytime there's an inclination to blame somebody else, rather than shift to say, all I can affect are my choices. And so how it will change the equation if I change my behavior. It will change the circumstance if I change my behavior. And so always to say a feeling of unsettledness in any circumstance is an invitation. How can I alter my behavior? Mm-hmm. The one thing I have control over, mm-hmm. to address this unsettled feeling. And so many times, they'll say something that irritates you in another person is really present in you.
Yes.
And so the scary thing is to say, that angers me so much of that other person. You have to be very brave to say, where within me does that quality exhibit itself? Am I willing to see that?
Yeah.
Am I willing to see that?
And not run from who you've
gosh.
been and who you are.
Yeah, and then to go, and then how can I address that? What could I do? What minor? And, it's just like anything that you become aware of already has the opportunity to shift and change, mm-hmm. because mm-hmm. your awareness of it makes you experience it differently.
Makes you experience it and understand. It's almost saying like, please don't make me beg to myself to see myself. Yeah. But I think in order to make that change, once you become aware of it and definitely become accustomed to it and brave enough to make that change, forgiveness of the self to do it. Be like, you know what? I was on this. It wasn't the best. I'm not proud of it, but I forgive myself for being there because I'm almost infatuated or in love with the idea of making the change of who I will be.
Yes.
So
have you ever read the Book of Forgiving by Desmond Tutu and Amanfu Tutu, his daughter?
I know the name, but I haven't read it, no. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, the Book of Forgiving.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the process of forgiveness is stating the facts, how you are personally affected by it, speaking absolute forgiveness, because the intention will actually affect what you're capable of doing, and then release or restore. Mm-hmm. And that just that pattern done over and over again, the pattern, which honestly should happen within us multiple times a day. And it affects the way you even see something historical, like something life-shaping in yourself.
Okay.
The more you go through that pattern, it's like you give yourself the opportunity. You don't even have to try to do this. Just eventually, over time, you start having an aerial view of it, and you start seeing other people and like, oh, they walked into that situation with a whole life that I never considered. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, there's so many practices that seems like you have time for later in life. You know, when you're young and drinking out of a fire hose and figuring out how you're going to pay your rent, and then all of a sudden you're like trying to feed 4 kids and, you know.
Yeah.
And then a lot of that madness recedes, and then you start writing songs again.
Just start writing songs again.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hard times come, it's all a part of living. Every time I close my eyes, I remember what you've given me. Everybody needs a friend like you, somebody who will always be there. In the highs and lows, in the dark and cold, in the middle of the night when I feel alone, and nothing in the whole wide world is ever gonna come between us. Together to the end, I'm blessed to have a friend like you. A friend like you.
Yeah, the other themes is love and companionship. You and your longtime husband, Vince Gill, performed the song together. A friend like you. Again, some of the lyrics. Hard times come and put us to the test. If I'm a faithful friend, I've learned it from the best. I like that because it talks about relationships, in this case, romantic and things, but I guess it could be transferred to anyone. But where each person has the opportunity to teach their partner. It's not like parochial in this, but it's like a loving way of teaching people, sharing gifts and experience of the other. Am I close with that? Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, I mean, personally, have been in relationships and where people take a point of pride, almost contention when it comes to teaching their partner. And something that I've done personally over the past year, I've talked to people considerably older than me who've been in what I call happy couples, happy relationships, and happy marriages. I know plenty of people who are unhappy. I'm like, why am I going to get advice from them? Mm-hmm. I'm going to get advice from people where it worked. And they talk about that. They talk about being friends, mm-hmm. like being true friends. Another quote from my grandmother: your friends are people who know everything about you and still love you. Mm-hmm. So they see the not perfect parts of you, but you are willing to be taught by that person. It doesn't mean that you're from what I'm taking from listening to this song and hearing you and Vince together, it doesn't mean that either one of you is lesser for having to learn something from your partner. It means that, to me, it feels like you're actually loving, you're humbling yourself. You're both humbling yourself to this relationship that you've made to help each other evolve. That, to me, feels like companionship, a relationship, and what we give the idea of love to be about.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes. To me, a relationship is like a rock tumbler. I loved rock tumblers when I was younger.
Okay.
And, way back in the 60s, they were like kind of the end gift. And you have all these jagged rocks, and then you plug in the machine with sand, and then they're beautiful and all the colors come out. And, Vince and I, we're a second marriage for both of us. And I have a young friend who's creative, second marriage for her. They both came with kids. They had a kid. And in kind of a vulnerable conversation, she said, I'm just like, when is the honeymoon stage? Because nobody rides off into the sunset. Life is a challenge. And we get to know ourselves in community. We get to know ourselves in as we're in a relationship with somebody else. anyway, and I said, "You're not going to like this answer, but really when that baby you just had goes off to college, that's when you actually you're going to be in the rock tumbler a long time before it's just the two of you."
Mm-hmm.
I told Vince this morning, because he did a show last night at the Ryman, and I said, I feel like he's at the top of his game right now at 68. He's singing like he's 18. And playing guitar with so much giftedness and wisdom about the notes that he chooses, and the space is as important as the sound. And honestly, from 2020 on, our relationship has grown so much. And I loved him before. I was attracted to him instantly. But to really know each other has come through really hard circumstances. You know, when our kids have struggled, I had open heart surgery in 2020, and then I had a bike wreck with 2 subsequent surgeries. We went through COVID. But it's like every adverse situation just gave us, the opportunity to, so many days he would say, "If you had it to do over again, would you still say yes?" And I said, "Yes."
Mm-hmm.
And, he's a man of very few words. And, I am from a family of women, and talking is connection.
Yes.
And there were times way back when I would be like, "Oh my gosh, it feels like ping with no pong." Come on.
I like that.
Yeah. But somewhere in the years that we've been together, and I've used this phrase with other people, you can't help it. So much of what you love about somebody is the way they make you feel about yourself and what you have together. But so much of it is the way they make you feel and what you do not realize that you're projecting onto them. All the things you don't know about each other, which, by the way, until you really go through it, you don't know what somebody's family was like, how they were in the birth order, what that did for them, their early experiences with everything, all those different facets of their life that shape their lens. And just because you're standing side by side, it doesn't mean you'll ever see the same situation from the same perspective, ever. Mm-hmm. I projected so much onto him. And then I kept looking for all those things that I had projected. And because I couldn't, they were never, I don't even know how to say it, but because now I've hopefully have moved through that and past that. But I just kept saying, when I finally stopped looking for what I was never going to find.
That's deep.
When I finally stopped looking for what I was never going to find, I discovered more than I hoped for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so now I really do, you look at another human and just go, the mystery of you, you can't forgive anybody else if you're not willing to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
You can't welcome another person if you're not willing to welcome yourself to the moment, with all your messiness. You can, and I just think about the times that we have struggled the hardest and hurt each other. So much of it just comes from it's all about dealing with your own expectations. So much of it. And then you throw it on somebody else. In some way you're saying, you weren't who I expected you to be. I wasn't who you expected me to be. That is such a layered journey.
Yes.
And there's so many ways that we try to control each other, and man, it takes a long time to surrender to your own life
You answered the next question I was going to ask. What must one shed to be a true companion for the one they love?
Oh, gosh. I mean, depending on how the wind's blowing, I'm sure you'd answer it a different
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So I was with a friend of mine, and I think she got this idea from Nora Ephron, but I think writing, journaling, you know, Julia Cameron with The Artist's Way talked about morning pages. I think just writing, just keep a pen moving above paper to help whatever's inside, that shy inner you will come out if you give it an opportunity to. You can push through and tackle your to-do list. How are you going to present yourself to the world? But every person there is an internal you that might not actually be anything like the person you express to the world. Anyway, so my college roommate, Jeannie DuBose, she did an exercise with a group that I happened to be in the audience of, and she said, and I think she got this from Nora Ephron, but she said, I want you to make a list, 25 things I will miss when this life is over. And she read Nora's list. And so, like, she might say, my children, the sound of my child's voice first thing in the morning, a sleepy goodnight mama. Like when you think about what you will miss when it's no more, and you have to kind of like get away from whatever your faith component is when this life's over. But if you look at your life, like what happened yesterday, and say, I want to name 5 things that I will miss if I never experience that again. That's a different way than saying, this is what happened to me today.
Yes.
But I will miss, if I never experience it again, I will miss hearing a guitar solo that will never be played the same way again. And I got to hear the bend in that note and feel the hair on my arm go up. Man, the sound of that one really loud bird outside the window when I was pouring my first cup of coffee. If I never heard that again. And so, like, if you think about things in terms of what would I miss if I never experienced that again, well, like suddenly inconsequential things, suddenly like, oh my, I loved that. Yeah. And if you look at the day that you just lived that way, then suddenly, I don't know, just like the appreciation for the simplest things.
Everything becomes more precious. A gift every moment.
Yes.
Receive it as that, or you could choose to approach it as a problem or a conflict.
Yeah, or even an irritant. A conflict. It's like, I was talking to my creative and coworker friend Jennifer, and like early on in our working relationship, it's like we want to totally be in stride, and then even in our conversation, I hope I'm saying this right, but to go, hey, we both welcome the push and pull. When we're trying to find an end goal and we feel that push and pull between us, because it's like, we're both like, we feel the impact of our different perspectives. We feel the impact of the different demands that we have in our lives, but we're coming shoulder to shoulder. And it's like, oh no, that awkward feeling of push and pull. Woo, yes.
It's the tide.
You welcome that because you go, God, if that's present, we're both actually really showing up. We're speaking our truth. And so even, what messages should we say to the younger people in our lives? Welcome failure. It's the best teacher you'll ever have. Because somebody else telling you what is important is going to be like, the Snoopy cartoon that we grew up with, the adult voices were always wah, wah,
yeah,
wah,
exactly.
wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
And so I look at my kids and I go, anything I learn the hard way, it's going to be wah, wah, wah in their ear. Just like that was the way it was for my parents. And to go, that's part of just the gift of wisdom. You the best lessons you learn the hard way.
Yeah. I've always said you have to earn wisdom.
Yeah.
Can't be given.
Yeah. And the push and pull, it's like, no, that's the good stuff. The conflict, you go, God, we're finally dealing. This all matters. That's why the temperature has gone up in the room.
Yeah.
And so take a deep breath and, yeah, that's the real stuff.
A friend like you.